Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jayadhire Krishna Prayashu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavase. Krishna Sadam Vagade Dhamagiri Karunashta Dishamasha Parana Pramabhya Dhamashuta Vishitam Vibhu Samhapyadena Bilam Padikshanam Prakyahiduham Maharatatmanam Sankleshandamanam Santi Nanyataham Om Aganati Mirandasyangarangana Sarki Chaksurun Mididam Yanatashmai Sri Guruve Namah Sri Chaitanyamano Bhishtam Stapitam Yerabhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparandikam Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Vishaya Bhutare Shrivari Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Sarasati Devi Gurvani Pacharini Nirvishesa Sanivari Praskatha Desana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. 18th verse. I think I was here last year and you gave Bhagavatam class. It was amazing. I don't think I'll come up to that standard. But birds fly high and low in the air according to their capacity. Neta Drishanam Sajjana Vyapekshaya Neva Drishanam Sajjana Vyapekshayam Grihad Pratiyad Anavashtitat Manam Ye Vyagatam Vakradya Vichakache Arobita Brubir Amarshana Shibihi. Anybody else want to go?
Naitadrishanam swajanam vyapekshaya.
Netadishanam Shajana Vyapekshaya. Rihan Pratiyad Anavashtitatmanam Yabhyagatam Bhakra Diya Vichakshase Aropita Bruvira Marshanakshibihi. Anyone else? Ladies or men? Netradishanam Shajanam Vyapekshaya Grihan Patiyad Anivashtatatmanam Yebhyagatam Bhakra Diya Vichakshate Aropitam Bruvira Marshanakshibihi. That was good. Word for word, na, not. Itadishanam, like this. Shajanam, kinsman. Vyapekshaya, depending on that. Rihan, in the house of. Pratiyat, one should go. Anavashtita, disturbed. Atmanam, mind. Ye, those. Abhyagatam, guests. Vakradhyam, with a cold reception. Abhichakshate, looking at. Aropita Brubi, with raised eyebrows. Amarshana, angry. Akshibahi, with the eyes. Translation, please repeat. One should not go to anyone's house, even on the consideration of his being a relative or a friend. When the man is disturbed in his mind and looks upon the guest with raised eyebrows and angry eyes. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. However low a person may be, he is never unkind to his children, wife, and nearest kin. Even a tiger is kind to its cubs, for within the animal kingdom, the cubs are treated very nicely. Since Sati was the daughter of Daksha, however cruel and contaminated he might be, naturally it was expected that he would receive her very nicely. But here it is indicated by the word anavashtita that such a person cannot be trusted. Tigers are very kind to their cubs, but it is also known that sometimes they eat them. Malicious persons should not be trusted because they are always unsteady. Thus, Sati was advised not to go to her father's house, because to accept such a father as a relative and to go to his home without being properly invited was not suitable. There was a big function. Daksha's going to do a sacrifice, and Daksha's known for doing things in a major way, a very elaborate way. It's one of the Prajapatis, so he has unlimited resources at his disposal. He's going to do a sacrifice. All the demigods are going to be present. It's going to be the party of the year. So naturally, everyone wants to go there. And what to speak of his own daughter, Sati? She's not aware of any condemnation upon her. She's aware that Lord Shiva is Mahadev, greatest of all the demigods. Not only that, he's Vaishnavanam Nitasambhu. He's the greatest devotee of Krishna. So whether you choose to estimate him according to material capacities or spiritual devotional qualities, he comes up right on the top of the list. So what if he covered his body with ash and spends time in the crematoriums? This material world is just a passing phenomenon. It's like a shadow. It's like a cloud. And the fact that of his detachment indicates that he's well situated. He's perfectly situated in deep, deep transcendental knowledge. But on the other side of the pole, it's her father, Shiva's father-in-law. There's a verse, I forget the Sanskrit, but it says that when one becomes expert, and Daksha's word name means expert, the flowery words of the Vedas, he's expert in doing this to get this. He knows exactly how to manipulate the laws of material nature to his temporary material advantage. And naturally he's like the king. Everybody knows that he's the best manipulator. He's the best exploiter of material nature through the process of karma. You can get anything you want if you know how to go about it. We were reading the other day about the mystic cities, the different mystic cities. You can countervene the laws of material nature. You can bring things from other planets. You can travel yourself to other planets. There's anything you can do. You can even who was it? Vishwamitra. He created his own planet. He created his own planet. He arranged for someone to go to that planet, even without having achieved the requisite qualifications. Well, Daksha's exactly, you couldn't find two more opposites between Shiva, who's renounced, he's the lord of all the demigods, and he doesn't even have a house for himself. I bow to Shiva with love and respect. I invoke him with his slogans because I'm open to, I bow to Shiva with love and respect. I invoke him with his slogans because I'm open to respect. In deep meditation with a snake around his neck, he's the husband of Parvati, Mahashakti, rides the white bull, the Nandi. He's the father of Ganapati, Mr. Mahadev. The Ganges flows down from the crown of his head. A crescent moon rests right next to his thread. He's the god of the dead, covered in ash with a smile on his face. His compassion is vast. He lives in Mount Kailash, also known as his Himalayan home in the shape of a lingam. He's a rolling stone. The Shiva Shankar, the yoga master, also known as Nataraj, the cosmic dancer, he's the lord of destruction, the god of disaster. If you don't invite him in, he's the party crasher. He's the old school mystic who's Krishna dualistic. He shifts my mind from a place that's materialistic to a space that's more holistic. He's the magnetic ascetic and makes my soul shine, awakens the snake at the base of the spine. Third eye wide open, a yoga pose. He focuses the mind so the petals unfold in deep meditation with breath control. He worships Lord Krishna by chanting his names as the Ganges drains to the sea, as bhakti remains at Krishna's lotus feet. Om Namo Shivaya, the flames get higher as the corpse gets burned, and the funeral pyre, the soul never dies, so the soul won't expire. When it's time to die, just let go of this attire, exhale to release selfish desire. May my soul aspire to shine bright like Shiva Nataraj, whom I admire, dancing a demon in a burning ring of fire. Mahadev, you're said to be pure auspiciousness, truth, conscience, bliss, creating, devastating, transformating. You saved the whole world when you saw the poison, you destroyed bad habits, ignorance, and greed. You practiced detachment, compassion, and peace. To the Lord of meditations, the King of all yogis, I offer these prayers. Om Namo Shivaya, Shivaya Namo, Om Namo Shivaya, Shivaya Namo. So he's the greatest. He's the greatest. I mean, he's the greatest. In devotion, he's also the greatest in terms of um, um, he is the glance of Vishnu. When Lord Vishnu wants to create the material world, there's the pradhana, there's the conflated material elements, and it is actually Shiva. Krishna doesn't touch material nature directly, but Vishnu glances over material nature, and then these conglomerated material elements get impregnated with all the different infinite number of jivas, and then it's like a calm water. All of a sudden it becomes agitated by the wind, and then there begins to be form and definition and movement and action and reaction. And that's all that wind which sets the metaphorical ocean into motion. That is Lord Shiva. Daksha understands zero of that. As far as doctor concerned, he's just some homeless guy. Now the governor of California, he's ordered them. Now they have to take down all the homeless shelters. San Francisco, apparently, the whole downtown is just homeless shelters. And now based on a Supreme Court decision, he's told the police and everyone just give them whatever it is, a week, 2 weeks notice, and then clear them all out. We did Toronto Rath Yatra 2 weeks ago. Has anyone been to that one? Actually, Madhu and I, we set the festival up. The first year they went to Center Island. You have to take a ferry to go after the Rath Yatra ends at Queen's Cay. And then everybody goes and takes a ferry to Center Island, where they have prasadam, they have kirtan, they have a cultural program, gift store, huge setup. And Dr. Mark Swami was telling me, he likes Central Island so much because the homeless people can't afford to take the ferry over. So there isn't that element of homeless people hanging around. This is how Dr. sees Lord Shiva. He sees him as he doesn't have any material possessions. He doesn't have a bank balance. From material consideration, he's not a success. He's a failure. And Daksha is particularly mortified because his daughter has chosen Lord Shiva, in a sense, over him. Every father is extremely attached to his daughter and very concerned about who it is a daughter goes to live with. Daksha advised Sati against Lord Shiva, but she was bound and determined to, and after all, she's the eternal consort of Lord Shiva, so there's no way Daksha could have dissuaded her. So she went and married Lord Shiva, and she's not at all, she never had any second thoughts or any regrets. That's who she is. She's the eternal consort of Lord Shiva, life after life after life after life. The problem is, and this is always the problem, I probably didn't pronounce it exactly right. Anybody know that verse? You probably know the verse, but my pronunciation of it didn't trigger recognition. It says that there's one type of living being who cannot see what is clearly obvious. There's noon, full sunlight, no shadows, nothing shrouded. There's no illusions, but there's one living being that cannot see that. Yeah, the owl, Aluluke, right? That's the word for the owl. Owl cannot, what everybody else can see, plain light of day at noontime, no shadows. The owl can't see. The owl is blinded by the very sunlight that makes everything clear for everyone else. Naham prakasha sarvasya yogamaya muda yamdana. Owl, O-W-L. Hoo. Owl can only see at night. Like some living beings, like cats, they can see during the day, they can see at night. I think they see very well at day, and I think they see very well at night. But the owl can only see at night. Something about the retina, he can't see. He's blind. He's blind at noon. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, he sees every little insect, every little mouse. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhikarina Shavanura Siddhi Kariyuda. We're spiritual beings. That's any sober man can understand. The body is changing, but I'm still the same. From boyhood to youth, you're not this body, you're living in your eternal spirit soul, so where shall it begin? Every living entity, including you, is eternal. It's the inner self which is true, the outer body, misty like morning dew, musty and crusty after youth passes earth, dust, dash. Every 7 years, each shell is changed. The old body's erased, effaced, displaced, Every cell is changing, you're always reincarnating. The question remains, who are you and what are you going to do about material contamination? To any sober person, it's obvious that we're a soul. And upon further reflection, it's obvious that we didn't create it. The soul doesn't have control. Our individual soul, which is situated within this body, is more than the body, because the body is changing, the soul's never changing. Throughout the entire life cycle, from boyhood to youth and old age, throughout multiple changes of body, the soul remains the same. The body changes, the mind changes. If every 7 to 10 years all the cells of the body change, that means if you live to be 80 years, in a sense, you've gone through 8 or 10 different bodies. And yet, and how many more times do we change our minds? You can change your mind like 20 times in a half an hour. So if we've had 8 or 10 different physical bodies during one lifetime, how many different times have we changed our opinions, changed our politics, changed our diet, changed our way of thinking about things? But in all of that, there's something indivisible, indestructible, eternal, unchanging. That's you. That's you. You're Satchidananda. You're made of the same stuff that God's made of, which is pretty good. People say, oh, I'm so unfortunate. I don't have talents. I don't have abilities. I don't measure up to my sister, my brother-in-law, or my coworkers. Now, the Olympics, I was coming over on the plane and everybody had their screen on the Olympics. I think it was the water, what do they call it? Water polo. And then yesterday, coming on the plane, what was it? It's pretty obscure stuff. Badminton. Can you imagine people train for years and years and years to become good at badminton? And the country must spend, I mean, they don't get a salary, but to provide the facilities and to provide a better class of athletes consistently across the board than what 100 other countries are doing. Can you imagine what the United States of America spends just to get that competitive edge? I mean, it's just mind-boggling. The United States has to get more golds than any other country because we are the United States of America. I remember one thing we had in the radio station. I think it was done by the old Madhu Pandit, not way back, the actor. So he said he imitated a Texas accent. My country is the best country in the world. Why do you feel like your country is the best country in the world? Because I was born there. Ya tirta sute bhuvite nakalachet. Ya shatma budi konape chidare shadi katipari budi titya. My country is the best. My country is a tirta because I was born there. So because it's the United States of America, we have to have the best athletes, and in order to do that, they have to train for years, and we have to support that. And all this competitive spirit the world is rife with it. Russia, China, Iran, United States, it's all the same thing. Who's going to be the top dog? Who's going to get the edge? And yet history tells us that so many empires have risen, so many empires have fallen. Basic law of material nature is that what goes up must come down. So better follow the advice of Prahlad, Shuka Dukani Moksha, Sankalpaya Karya. Prahlad Maharaj gives the best advice. This 5-year-old boy, he gives the best advice. The major cause of unhappiness is trying for happiness. The major cause of unhappiness is trying for happiness. Shiva's just turned inward to the super soul, to Krishna from within the heart. He's got his Rudraksha, he's chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He leaves aside everything else as being chaff, not worthy of our attention. Every single moment, Ayushana Lokapi, every single moment is so valuable, you cannot buy it with Shrina Kotabi, millions and millions of gold coins. There's no greater tragedy than wasting the currency of this human form of life. First of all, you've got the human form of life, which is unique amongst 8,400,000 species of life. And secondly, in this human form of life, you have the ability to understand Durlabha Manushama, to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But it's limited. It's limited. You only have, if you take away the nights that we sleep, you take away infancy, you take away invalidity at the end of, you take away the time that you spend raising a family. It's not that much. 20 to 25 years during a lifespan of 100 years in order to execute Krishna consciousness. So every moment is precious. Every moment is valuable. No moment should be wasted. If we're not cooking or cleaning or making flower gardens for the deities or organizing festivals, then we should have our beats. And even in the intervals, when we're going from one service to another, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Lord Shiva is an emblem of perfection, in as much as he's exerting himself towards self-realization and towards God realization. And he's an example to all of us. We may not go to that same extreme, living in Himalayas, taking up residence occasionally in a crematorium. But the great souls, they do extreme things just to get us a little bit out of our comfort zone. You know, Raghunath Das Goswami was Raghunath Das or Raghunath Bhatta. Raghunath Das was taking the food which is swept to the hole. You know, in the kitchen, there's a little ditch, a little groove with a hole that goes outside. And you take anything that fell down while you're cutting, the husks, corn husks and rice husks, and you just sweep it along with the dirty water out that hole. And Raghunath Das Goswami was taking his food from there. Now, it's not that we should do the same thing, but by his example, we need to understand that we don't live to eat, but we should eat to live, and just become a little bit more detached by his extreme example. So Lord Shiva is a model, a beacon of light for the whole world in terms of his detachment and his devotion. He doesn't waste time. He maximizes his time. But on the other hand, there's Daksha, who does not see what is clearly evident. He does not, and it's not that he couldn't. He's very intelligent. Namam Duskritina Mudha Prapadyate Naradava. He has Kritina. He has more merit than any of us sitting in this room. He has more merit by thousands of times. But the problem is he doesn't have the vision. He doesn't have the eyes. He uses those eyes. He could be awakening the Jnana Chakshu. He could be awakening the eye of knowledge by chanting Hare Krishna and surrounding himself with great saints and sages and performing the Sankirtan Yajna. But he's busy with other eyes, other aksha. He sees the beautiful, glittering, enchanting forms, tapo trayan mulanam. He sees the material world and he gives himself over to all of its allurements and all of its promises. And so when his own daughter, his own flesh and blood, and even aside from spiritual considerations, it's just common courtesy. When you have any guest, you look at them softly. In India, you've often experienced people, friends, acquaintances, they don't get an invitation. You can do that, and that's considered proper. You know, we're coming at this time and this time. So the hosts can prepare themselves so they won't be interrupted. They won't be in the middle of watching the Olympics, for instance. You know, it's my favorite sport, my favorite athlete, and there's a knock on the door. Tell them I'm not home. So that's why we call, so if they're watching their favorite sports show or something, they'll make the adjustment. They say, well, could you come an hour later or something? But it's really a sign of greater intimacy in a sense, just to drop in uninvited. Because that shows a friendship, that shows a relationship that's stronger than normal protocol. And who is a host? I was life membership director in Los Angeles for 10 years. And so I visited so many Indian people in their homes. And I rarely called ahead. I'm in the area, so I'll just drop by. And in all the many, many years that I would drop by with homes of Indian people in Utah and Los Angeles, not one time did I ever feel anything other than totally welcomed. And I know I interrupted them. And sometimes I interrupted them while they were doing the things that were very dear to their heart. And I know they must have had that, it's the worst time. But when they opened the door, they had made the adjustment. And there was not a single critical, hard look from them. It was every time, it was always like they gave me the impression they were doing nothing other than waiting on the other side of the door with a glass of water and some good words for me to appear. It's like you were totally expected, not like, couldn't you have called? I mean, this is not a good time. Nobody ever conveyed that to me by words of certainly, by body language, and especially not by a hard look. What to speak of your own daughter? Does your own daughter have to call and make an appointment to come and see you? So Sati is living with the most highly evolved, civilized, cultured living being. And she's his eternal consort. So she knows all these things. She personifies these values. It's in her bones, in her prana. It never occurs to Sati that her father will not welcome her with open arms, despite whatever differences he might have with Lord Shiva. Because hospitality is a different category altogether. Hospitality, you remember at the Kurukshetra, 18 days of the Kurukshetra war, after the hostilities were over, the warriors were trying their level best to kill each other with javelins and arrows and swords and shields. But once the sun went down, all of that was put aside. They would go across and visit each other in their tents and discuss and tell stories and laugh and slap each other on the back and smile at each other. And when the sun rose the next morning, they'd try and kill each other once again. Krishna, when he washed the feet of all the incoming guests at the Rajasuya sacrifice of Yudhishthira, he didn't just wash the feet of the Yadus and the Pandavas. He washed everyone's feet. He must have washed Jarasanda's feet, Sisupal's feet, all their soldiers' feet. He didn't say, well, I'll wash the feet of my friends, but I won't wash the feet of my enemies. No, he washed the feet of his friends, he washed the feet of his enemies, and every one of his enemies whose foot he washed, he made them feel by the rules of hospitality as if they were friends. They had nothing to fear. Otherwise, they might try and kill each other. But when you're my guest, you have nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. This is the culture. Sati could not imagine that her father would not do anything but receive her with open arms, putting aside whatever differences he had, because she's his daughter. She's his flesh and blood. And every father, the daughter is the most precious thing. I remember Oprah Winfrey many years ago, she had a program on arranged marriages. And she had two people I know, Vinod Chopra and Pranjeevan Popat, on the show with her. Vinod Chopra was a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and Pranjivan was a Hare Krishna devotee. He ran a little kiosk building downtown, and so I forget what the exact how it led up to it exactly. But the question came up. There's a lot of skepticism, and Oprah was, playing the devil's advocate, saying, "How can you give your daughter to someone she's never met before? How could anyone do that?" And they weren't so much talking about the way it is nowadays, because that's not the case. But they were talking about, the traditional arranged marriage in which the bride would never have seen the spouse, and vice versa. There's antarpat during the wedding ceremony. The brothers of the girl put up a cloth, and the priest chants some mantras, and all of a sudden he stops mid-sentence. And when he stops, they drop the cloth, and the bride and groom throw flowers at each other. And the reason for that is that in traditional ceremony, they would have never seen each other. So awkward moment? Yeah, quite possibly. Like, oh my God, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this person. So that's why they throw the flowers, to lighten things up, break the ice, so to speak. So Oprah was playing the devil's advocate. She said, how can this be that you give your daughter to someone who's never seen before? And the answer, I couldn't really do it the same way. But Vinod, he said, look, there's nothing or nobody more precious to me in this world than my daughter. I want better for her than she could ever imagine. So I'm not going to let her go to bars and singles clubs and pick her own mate. I mean, she's going to have a say in it, certainly. She's not going to marry anyone without her final approval. But I am going to, as her father who wants the best for her and for whom she is my greatest treasure in life, I'm going to use my superior experience, my superior networking, my superior wisdom to get for her the very, very best husband. After all, he's going to replace me. So do you think I'm going to cut corners and do something, get somebody second class? And that was the ultimate answer. That was the ultimate answer. So this is Satya's Daksha's most precious possession. And so what? She married Lord Shiva. So what? There's a difference of opinion. So what? Daksha didn't agree. So what? Because a father in those, oftentimes you marry your daughter in such a way as to increase your power. Marriage is often strategic also in the modern day, especially to make alliances between families so you get more economic power. And this didn't happen with Sati. So there are all kinds of issues that Daksha had, which are really non-issues from our point of view. The problem is he cannot see the truth, that he is spirit. As a spiritual being, he is created from, and he is subordinate to the Supreme Spirit, Krishna, and the highest Dharma, Savaya Pumsam Paro Dharma Yato Bhakti Ahaitukiyapata. The highest duty of the living being is to engage in uninterrupted and unmotivated devotional service. And Daksha sees none of that. So he lowers himself, he disgraces himself to the point where when his own daughter comes to the sacrifice, to see her mother and to see her sisters, and to just be part of it, he gives her a hard look. He gives her a hard look. And then she burns her. She can't stand it. That how is it that this body comes from him? She says, I'll no longer live in this body. And she immolates herself by her own mystic yogi powers. So anyway, probably time's up, isn't it? Any questions or comments?
Nice class, man. Amazing. Why Daksha has become that much very rapidly explained? We have seen Vishnu is a Prajapati, son of Brahma. Now gave his daughter to Mahadev. How is it that he has gone to that level where he was so unkind to his daughter?
Radhika Raman, he has a seminar called Creation Out of Chaos. How is it that Brahma lusted over his own daughter? How is it that Prekit garlanded a sage with a snake? How is it that Arjuna fell into illusion? Arjuna, the eternal Narayan, fell into illusion in the beginning of the Kurukshetra war. How are any of these things? Because out of chaos, often there is creation. Out of chaos, there's creation. Now, this is a whole canto, practically the fifth canto of the Bhagavatam, based on this story. And so certainly whatever Daksha did, a big part of it is the Lord has a purpose in mind. He has lessons to impart to generations and generations of future people. And just as Shiva's extreme in his own way, and we're not meant to smear ourselves with ashes and live without a house. So Daksha is also extreme in his own way. So we can have a family, we can have a house, we can do some of the things that Daksha is doing, but not to the extent that he's doing it. That's the problem. Yukta vairagya uchate. Learn karma varikadishta ma phalashu kadachana. It's not the work that you have to be careful or cautious about, but it's the fruits. It's hankering after the fruits of the work. So whether you're a householder, whether you're a renunciate for whom your mentor is Shiva, or whether you're a householder for whom you can take lessons from Daksha, you're not meant to go to either extreme. You're meant to look at their extreme position and learn the lessons that you're supposed to learn from it. So whatever Daksha did, it comes out as almost an entire canto of the Bhagavatam. So in answer to your question, because Krishna had a good purpose for it. Some other questions?
Nobody has. I have one more. Prabhuji, then every time we quote you, saying Charu Prabhupada, how long does it take for the process to work? Prabhupada said around 40 years. You said this in the Buddhist meeting also one time. Can you exactly know what you asked and what Prabhupada said?
Did I ask that?
That's what somebody Charu was
I heard it. I heard Prabhupada say that, and other devotees have too.
oh, yes.
But I mean, I've listened to all of Prabhupada's talks and all of his tapes. So sometimes you think Prabhupada said it directly to you, but he may not have actually said that in your physical presence. So I don't recall that I was physically present when Prabhupada said that, but he said it, and I heard it, and other devotees have corroborated too. Somebody asked, "How long does it take?" I don't think so. But he said about 40 years. But that's strict, good 16 good quality rounds, 4 regular principles, very strictly. And another time he said, really it takes a second. Like, gosh, I can't think of his name now. Yeah. No, the Kadbanga Maharaj. Yeah. Because he was doing everything in Krishna consciousness and he was not taken by surprise at his impending death. Devotee lives his life in such a way as to think I could die at any moment, which is a fact. I could die at any moment. That's reality. Devotee lives according to an objective, assessment of reality. And Kadvanga personifies that. When he was informed he only had a moment, he wasn't like traumatized, he wasn't shocked, he wasn't surprised. He'd lived his whole life for this moment. And so he knew exactly what to do. He didn't waste time being crestfallen or taken aback or regrets or anything. He just immediately transferred within a second his consciousness to Krishna. But Prabhupada says sometimes, but you know, you back up and you figure Kadvanga probably spent a good 40 years, you know, acting in full Krishna consciousness, so that when the time came, he was prepared to the needful. Prabhupada said you can become Krishna conscious in a moment, but it requires sincerity. However, to get the dust and the insincerity off of our heart, it may take some time. Really, we're just talking about the way things are. We're talking about, you know, reality in the full light of sun. But the problem is, you know, we've gotten distracted. You know, we've spent who knows how many incarnations in the pursuit of temporary material things. So Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada says, is not an artificial imposition. It's a natural position of the soul, but we just have to purify. That's what we're doing. We're purifying so we can see what's obvious to the great illuminated saints and sages throughout history. There's nothing more natural in the world than chanting Hare Krishna, trying to go back to home, back to Godhead. Haribo. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Yeah. Okay.